Yo, what's up, boys? It's Tuna. I just wanted to make a quick update of my Spectral Shield throw build, my Ellie Raider Spectral Shield throw build. This is more of a sort of an update on how I've ended up with the build and its final variant and how strong it is and whatnot. So there's a few things that I'd like to explain that people have been asking about, which primarily have been about the Yoke of Suffering. So as you guys know, this league we had ailment thresholds updated, and now with Yoke of Suffering, since we have a huge hit with this build, so the bigger your hit, the bigger the shock that you're going to be applying to the bosses and things like that, we're actually able to apply a 50% shock to all bosses, including Cirrus and Shaper and things like that. And I just set this one up here real quick, just to sort of show what it's like. There we can see the shock that we get on Shaper, and you can actually do that by mousing over him now. So let's see here if I can get a good example going. You see, in a few hits we're getting a 50 shock. You can see it up there on his life bar. So yeah, there it is, 50 shock on Shaper. It's not bad at all. So that is why we use the Yoke of Suffering. So that means that enemies are actually taking 50% increased damage. So there it is. We typed that into PoE right there, since we can get that on all bosses. I know it used to sound like a meme, like people like taking 50% shock, but it's actually not a meme anymore. It's insane. You can actually hit a 50 shock now on Cirrus and Shaper, and I don't know whether they're gonna nerf it, but it sort of makes sense with my build because I'm actually hitting for roughly 5.5 million per hit. So that means that like my shock threshold is gonna be much higher. Like I'm gonna be shocking for a lot more than most other builds that do like smaller hits but more frequently. Yeah. One thing I'd like to add, because of this, how much increased damage taken the enemies have on them due to the shock, intimidate is actually terrible. So intimidate is just not good at all. That is because it has diminishing returns, very heavy diminishing returns. So having intimidate, you can see that brings my damage from 38,400,000. I take that off, which should be right here, 36,800,000. So that's about like 1,500,000, 1.5 mil. So it's still a decent amount, but it's not insane by any means, because actually if you were to get something like this, a crit multi implicit, you'd actually be getting a lot more than that. So I do not recommend intimidate anymore over a crit multi base if you're going for the Yoke of Suffering. So yeah, that's what I would consider to be the best. So I'll talk about some of my gear and the decisions that I made. So I felt like I had so much damage already that it was better for me to go for an explode weapon over my old weapon, which was this, the hatred effect and things like that. I lost a lot of damage doing that, but we've gained a lot of clear, and I think clear is the one thing that I really wanted to emphasize on the build to make it feel better. So I managed to pick this up for I think it was around 4x. It's a really good weapon for 4x, so that's one thing for sure. But I'm not exactly sure how easy it is to make something like this. I don't think it's very easy at all. If you want a weapon like this, I would recommend maybe putting up a live search and hoping that one pops up. You're just looking for enemies explode, crit multi, pen, Guinness extra. Well, Guinness extra is not even that good, but yeah, anything like that. And you're able to craft a prefix or something. And I have dropped my trigger because honestly, it's nicer to have control over where your hydrosphere goes. And since I'm not like really clicking my flasks and things like that, I'm completely fine with clicking my hotbars and things like that. So that's one thing that's really nice about having the instilling orbs on your flasks now. So yeah, that is the weapon. And the shield, I synthesized around 20 shields to get flat evasion implicit. What you're looking for percent evasion, flat evasion, flat energy shield, or percent energy shield. All of those are amazing. The best one that you can get is actually flat energy shield. A flat energy shield would make your crit multi and your crit chance go up. which is the most important thing. But yeah, I divined mine to 1,800 and 361 ES. It's a very, very good shield nonetheless. So yeah, and the way I did that was just I synthesized it and I spammed around 1,000 plus dense fossils to get triple T1. Once I had that, I crafted prefixes cannot be changed. I reforged for a resistance, so reforged fire in this case. And once I had a decent resistance, I went to prefixes cannot be changed again. Ashling for the 50-50. What that means is that it has a 50% chance of removing the prefix cannot be changed, or a 50% chance of removing your resistance. So that's what I did there. And I unveiled double damage, which is very lucky, you know. So yeah, it was a very expensive craft, but you know, this is an endgame PoB and an endgame showcase of what you should aim for if you want to min-max this build. So I figured I'd be talking about all this stuff. This is not a beginner guide by any means, so yeah. Only if you're like a richling and want to really invest into this build. So yeah, that's the shield. For the helmet is still very basic. It's nothing too insane. I just made sure that the suffixes were good, so I got -9 chaos res, and fire res. And that's just by spamming frigid fossils. And once I had that, I reforge keep suffix to make sure that it's clean. And then craft suffix cannot be changed. Reforge life. So life, getting T1 life is a 1 in 13. It's not feasible honestly to get that. So 1 in 13, that would be 26x of reforge life plus, right? So that is a lot of currency. Even I opted out for it. So as soon as I hit T1 hybrid, which I actually got with veiled chaos orbs, because I was actually getting sick of reforging life, then I just kept it and I crafted life. So the way I did that again is suffix can be changed, veiled chaos orb, and then just crafted life to finish it off. And this is pretty much 92 life, so we're about 8 life off of T1. You know, it's a good helmet. It's not bad. For the chest, I know many of you are going to be thinking about like, oh, now that you don't have the threshold of level 24 gem, you're losing an insane amount of flat damage, but Yoke of Suffering is worth it. Yoke of Suffering is just insane. It's so much damage, and people are corrupting them now for like Hatred Aura effect. It's pretty good. The best one that you could possibly get is +1 curse, and then getting a curse on your ring, maybe on your implicit instead of intimidate. But yeah, Yoke of Suffering is worth it. It's insane. For gloves, the gloves are honestly impossible to craft aside for getting extremely lucky on the Woke Orb or something. So that's yeah, Woking conversion with Frenzy, and then if you have a free prefix, prefix cannot be changed, reforge life, hope for T1. If you don't get it, then you know, not much you can do. But then what I did is I spent around 40 exalts to try to get good suffixes. I went for T1 chaos res, so that's prefix cannot be changed, reforge chaos till T1 chaos res, and anything else that we get along the way we keep. So I got T3 cold res, which is really good. Then I just crafted crit chance elemental damage, since percent elemental damage is really good, as we have a lot of flat that we want to scale off of our skill gem. So that is that. This ring is really good, but it's really basic. So the flat damage to fire is like, it's really bad. It's only good if you're using Cinder Swallow, which I'm not actually currently using, because again, you get so much enemies take increased damage that Cinder Swallow does nothing. It's actually better to get Silver Flask of Acceleration. So the percent attack speed is better than Cinder Swallow, and you also have a lot more uses out of this. So it's, yeah, honestly just much better. But the main thing about this ring, the main purpose of it is the T1 accuracy. And the T1 accuracy is also, I use the Tag Catalyst to get that all the way up. That is so I can drop precision. So I didn't want to use precision anymore. So yeah, that sort of allowed me to do that. And now I'm reserving Herald of Purity, Hatred, and Defiance Banner. Defiance Banner is just, it's just free evasion for 10%. You know, I didn't need the mana, so I decided to take Defiance Banner for practically nothing. So yeah, that's what I'm using there. Now I got a link to Enlighten 4. Otherwise, you don't really need Enlighten 4. You can just save on that and just don't use Defiance Banner. You should be good with 116 mana. So yeah, that is just fine. For movement ability, I decided to go for actual Phantasmal Leap Slam instead. Normal Leap Slam is fine because it doesn't really matter that much, but Phantasmal gives 10% attack speed, so That feels really good. When you have frenzy charges, it's really, really fast. And that is because I just wanted to go for fortify, life tap, faster attacks, and I just wanted to make sure that I could get over ledges. I dropped flame dash, and this is just a consistent way to proc my fortify. Gotta make sure that when you're playing this build, you keep your fortify up. Fortify is honestly a lot of damage reduction, so if you're keeping your fortify up and you have your wind dancer up and your endurance charges from the Elixir of the Unbroken Circle, you're gonna be able to tank big hits. As you can see here from our calcs, you can tank a hit of 10k, and we got an effective HP pool of 54k against fizz damage, and it's 30k for elemental, so on. So long as you have your endurance charges and your taste of hate up. And if you can see here, if we actually turn on Immortal Call, then we can mitigate even more burst damage. Sorry, you couldn't see it, but yeah, if you turn Immortal Call on, you can mitigate even more burst damage that way. So yeah, 78k with the Immortal Call and 54k without it. Sorry about that, I had the wrong scene there for a second. Damn. The build currently has 38 million damage, which is honestly excessive. Which is why I swapped to the Ghoul Breaker, this Exploding Mace. So that's 38 million damage with my old weapon, and then 33 mil and a half with this, which is honestly still way more than enough. And yeah, the build behaves very, very well. So yeah, I wanted to talk about the Elixir of the Unbroken Circle. It's a pretty good flask. It's not like insane or anything like that by any means, but what it does is it gives me some regen per endurance charge, which is super good. You get its duration up to like 4.5 seconds. So that means that every second you'll generate an endurance charge. And every time you generate an endurance charge, it'll charge up all the way to 3, right? And then you'll be using the flask again, so you're pretty much always having both the regen and the endurance charges. And what that also means is that when you do proc your Immortal Call, is that your Immortal Call is going to be much, much stronger. You're going to get a lot more physical damage reduction from that, and elemental damage reduction in general. So essentially, it's just to juice your Immortal Call and to feed into Wind Dancer, right? Because if you tank a first hit, you have Fortify and Wind Dancer up, that's 40% damage reduction. If then a second hit comes through, that's when your Immortal Call is going to be up, because it's going to be proccing off the first hit. So then you're going to be able to mitigate burst damage, and with our, with our dodge, with elusive and things like that, it's very, very unlikely that we're going to be getting barraged with hits, with and getting stunned and things like that, as we are a raider. We have our evasion, defiance banner, and all that sort of stuff. So honestly, the build is really tanky. I got it to level 97. I currently have no XP because I've been doing some pretty meme stuff. Like we did a multi-proj minus max LE week, shield ground feared the other day, and that's probably the last thing I did on that character, and I actually just depleted my XP doing that at about 10% there. So yeah, it's honestly, like, you get XP if you actually pay attention to your screen. So for the belt, I chose to go for Headhunter. That's because when you get to a point in the game, does any other belt even exist? Don't hate the player, hate the game. That's just the way it is. A better belt for damage would be a Stygian Vice or Torrent's Reclamation. Torrent's Reclamation is actually a better belt. The problem with that for me is that I've balanced my character around having a Headhunter. So if I take this shit off, I have no strength. It's completely scuffed. My entire build is just pretty much reliant on this shit belt, and as upset as I am about it, it's just the way it is. I shouldn't have built around it, and I regret that, but I'm now a slave to the skull belt. Yep. That is just the way it is. And the last thing that I like to talk about is these boots. These boots are honestly insane. They're double elevated onslaught tailwind boots. There's a guide that Elesshar made on how to craft these, but essentially you don't have to worry about double elevating everything. What I would do is I would elevate onslaught though, since onslaught, if you don't elevate it, is completely useless. But it gives 10% attack and cast speed and movement speed while you have onslaught. So you elevate that and you merge that with tailwind. And then you hope that you have a free suffix. If you have a free suffix, then what you do is you do suffixes cannot be changed, reforge lightning. That guarantees a tier of lightning resistance. So then your 3 suffixes are full. Again, you go suffix cannot be changed. You reforge critical to get your elusive on there. and that's Pog. So now you're left with Tailwind, Elusive, Onslaught, and a Resistance. So that's your 4 mod. You go again, Suffix cannot be changed. You Ashling for 50-50 to get movement speed on. But before you unveil movement speed, you go to the crafting bench. So once you have your veiled mod on there, you type mana, right? Not mama, mana. So you go mana and you just craft maximum mana or regen and mana. So that makes sure that you pretty much have a 99.9% chance to unveil a movement speed. And ideally you don't want to get cannot be chilled because yeah, we're a raider, we're ailment immune, so yeah, Pog. So yeah, that actually brings me to talk about the ailment immunity, which is some pretty cool technology. So we have thick skin, right? Thick skin is giving us I believe it's 20? Yeah, 20%. So we have 50 from Ascendancy, then we have 20% from here. And then we have 20% from the belt, which is avoid ailments while you have elusive, right? Which is huge because we have elusive from the boots and it's 100% uptime because we crit. We're a crit build. So we have 20%, 20%, that's 40%, right? And then we have this as well. Like, this jewel is insane. So it's only crit multi, which is whatever, crit multi life, but it's also got avoid ailment while you have elusive. So this and that together, that's 30%, then we have 20%, and then we have 50% from Ascendancy. So we're ailment immune through these 3 means. And the way that you get belt enchants is that I did this one myself. So I just went in fragments and you run dedication to the goddess. So that's the ones. You go dedication to the goddess, you run it with twice enchanted, and it's not very likely to get it. I'm not sure if they're weighted, but yeah, that's what I did. So. And finally, to just talk about the flasks. So since we're ailment immune, we can afford to get things like acceleration on there, adrenaline. I put curing because poisons are actually pretty scuffed. I have the elixir of unbroken circles for the endurance charges, and taste of hit, of course, the best flask in the game. And I believe that is all. Actually, no, I would like to talk about the cluster setup because I've actually changed that. I've changed the cluster setup because shield clusters are insane. Advanced guarding, this one gives me 13% movement speed and 30% attack damage while holding a shield. That in itself is just insane. Like 13% movement speed, I'll take that any day of the week. So this ignore movement speed penalties is why we get that movement speed. That's the same as having like Are the Gladiator, and you can have that anywhere. So that's crazy, man. When I Fuel the Fight, a lot of people ask me like, where's your mana leech? Like, bro, we're an attack build. Fuel the Fight, or there's literally a node on the tree called mana leech. Like, I don't understand how people just don't get this. It's literally called mana leech. Maybe I'm elitist, but it's like actually just there. It's mana leech. It's called mana leech. So what you can do is like, you can just path here instead if you don't have that cluster. So imagine like I was pathing through here instead of there. That's completely up to you. And then you could just take that with 1 point. If you like. So 4% of attack damage is mana leech. Cool. And we also have blood drinker. So that is our life leech. For our crit cluster, we're using pressure point, quick getaway. Quick getaway is not the best for damage, but it's 5% movement speed. So that's all I care about, movement speed. Yep. So we use quick getaway, and pressure point is really good because double damage and crit chance. That's pretty much 6% node there. And this is what changed. So since I have dropped power charge on crit on my brand setup, I had to get it somewhere else. So I use Storm Rider, and I get a power charge whenever I shock a chilled enemy. And because I'm using Yoke of Suffering now, I shock a chilled enemy all the time. So that's going to apply to the second hits, and we're going to have a 10% chance there. So it's going to take a little bit of time to ramp up. That's fine, right? So yeah, that's right there, Storm Rider, and then a Blast Freeze. So Blast Freeze, you know, it's gonna give us a bit of defense. So we always freeze unless it's a fully ailment avoid map. So we use Blast Freeze to make sure that we keep safe. And I think it's just too good. And the rest of the jewels are just what they used to be in the old PoB. The Lethal Pride, we're just looking for double damage. So in my case, I got 10% double damage and 20% fizz, as well as a little bit of fizz extra fire, but fizz extra fire sucks. But actually, just look at this jewel though. Look at this. Like, if I was to actually take those, it's quad double damage. But we don't take those because they're just not good for our build, right? But yeah, quad double damage is pretty insane. Cool. And not only that, it also gives us enough strength to play, you know. So yeah, that's the clusters. That is everything there, and yeah, that's the build. That is as far as I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna leave this build as it is. Most likely, what you'll see is me swapping the boots around, since it cost me a lot of currency to craft those boots. I'm gonna be swapping them around between builds. I don't want to have to recraft them. So if you look at my profile and I'm using these boots instead, you know why. It's because I'm probably playing other builds. So yeah, if you have any questions, make sure to check out the Twitch channel. Come ask whatever. Yeah, looking forward to making maybe new builds and things like that. And I hope you enjoyed this Spectral Shield Throw. I honestly didn't think people would actually play this build, but it turns out a lot of people do. Look at PoE Ninja now. Looks like a lot of people are actually playing Spectral Shield Throw, man, which is really, really nice to see. Spectral Shield Throw. Wait, this is actually, it's funny to see because this is Ultimatum. Look, Spectral Shield Throw Ultimatum. It's not even there. It's a 0.1%, 0.2, and then they buff it, right? They buff it, and look what happens. 34%, man. That's actually insane. That's actually just insane. It's so cool to see. And by the way, when I was making the build, there was one dude playing it as a raider, and he was Elemental Overload with the heist weapon. So, you know, we pioneered that shit, boys. We pioneered that shit. Anyways, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye. Peace. Thanks Jesse as well, by the way, for making me want to play the build, because if it wasn't for Jesse, I wouldn't have wanted to play the build. But Jesse was like, yo, you gotta try Spectral Shield Throw, dude. It's fucking busted. Like, Spectral Shield Throw? You gotta be kidding me, dude. Like, you gotta see it, man. You get fuck 1,600 base fizz, dude. You gotta see it, bro. I was like, okay. And then I tried it, and it was just busted. Alright, thanks. Peace.